Hello and welcome to TropX Live, episode 4, live from Tropical Exposure Studios here in McAllister Street. I'm Benno, Benjamin Wayne Bishop I, and we've got some exceptional guests on the show today. Number one, he's a highly skilled aircraft pilot, a broadcast radio announcer. He's a travel industry professional. He's a human resources professional. Most importantly, he is a multiple mayor of Mackay. We're very proud to have him on the show. Mr. Greg Williamson.
Benno, it's great to be here, mate.
Excellent.
Benno the first, Wayne. I didn't know your middle name, so there you go.
Yeah, my father's name.
This is very good, mate.
Yeah, he was a heavy marine towage specialist on the tugs in Mackay for 50 years, so 50 years in our port.
Fantastic.
And the reason I was born in Mackay, Mum and Dad came to Mackay in 1971, I think I was, or 72, the birth of Hay Point, and biggest tugs in the Southern Hemisphere they were at the time.
I know. I did some time at Adelaide Steamship Company. That was my first job, actually.
Oh, wow.
When I didn't get into the Air Force. My first job was in the Adelaide Steamship Company, and that was when in 1972. So starting to give away my age a little bit, but in 1972, that was when Hay Point just started. So I know the Yarwin and the tugs that were out in the harbours at those days, massive vehicles and.
Yeah, well, Broadtown and Ballyando,
Yeah.
the two biggest tugs in the Southern Hemisphere, and they used to steam from Mackay Harbour
That's
in
right.
those days before the tug harbour.
Before the tug harbour was built at Hay Point.
Yeah, so great
half
story. And we also have on the show a broadcast media professional, a very long time friend of mine. He's had multiple high-level roles in the mining industry in consultation and communications. He's an entrepreneur. He's the son of a railway man. I had to throw that one in there. Huge part of Mackay's business community with the dispensary, Any Food, Byrnes Pies and Cafes, and many other business ventures. Mr. Damien Connors, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Mr. Damien Vincent Connors the first I go by. And please never put...
That gets a laugh.
Please never. The one thing I always say when I'm at any function with Greg is never, ever go after Greg. And he put me after Greg. That bio of his just made my... And then he had to add something to it. Well, I worked at Strudwick's straight out of school. Put that in my bio.
Shop at Struddy's, where your buddies. I remember that. I actually made a couple of commercials for Struddy's back in the day with my sister, Lauren Bishop, in the ads as a model.
There you go. I was never a model.
No. I did a bit of modelling for Batros back in the day, but only because I did it for free clothes and that was it. No actual pay. Our third panellist today is the founder and managing director at 2 Sensor. He's a general manager of JCV Services. He's a heavy industrial plumber. He's an innovator and a great marketer, which is why we've got on the show today, Mr. Corey Vaughan.
Thanks, Matty.
Great to have you here.
No middle name, mate.
Fair enough.
No. It was one of those jokes when everyone was too ashamed at school and the roll call come out that the teacher would give out their middle name, and I'll say no one will ever know my middle name, and the teacher would go right and grab the roll. No middle
Don't
name.
have one. Very strong. It's very strong to have two names like that. Well, look, we always talk about advertising and communication in the modern world, and TropX, as we know, I absolutely love advertising, and I love the broadcast world, and I think it's an industry that's going to be around forever, but it's an industry that's changed so much over the years. And Greg, my first memories of you were as a 4MK announcer. So you're a panellist. You did everything in those days. Tell us about that.
Well, that's right. We actually did everything. And not like today, where you have this little panel in front of you that does absolutely everything that you need as a digital panel in those days. And I'm sure you appreciate the analog panels.
Absolutely.
But you're right. I mean, I got into radio very early in the piece. As I said, I didn't get into the Air Force because they wanted me as a navigator and I wanted to be a pilot, and they'd already trained me to fly. So I said, well, that's it. I'm not going to do that. I took the first job. That was the Adelaide Steamship Company. I couldn't live off that money. So I became a part-time radio announcer at night, and then I graduated to breakfast. I ran breakfast in Mackay for 7 years. And
7 years.
It was absolutely fantastic. But you're right, we did everything. There were no panellists for us. We had to arrive early in the morning, start up the station, fire up everything that needed to be fired up in those days, and do everything. Read the news, read the weather, construct the news actually.
And did you? Obviously you had a beautiful timbre and a great voice for radio. How did it sort of come around? Were people encouraging you to talk?
No, as I said, I just fell into the role, and then I learned from there. I joined Toastmasters at a very early stage, and that's where I opened as Toastmasters came in. Toastmasters was a bit of a hoity-toity organisation in those days, not today, of course, but did things too much by the rules. And Greg Chappell and I said, well, we don't want to play by those rules. We just want to be able to talk properly. And then I opened as Toastmasters was born, and that was an early morning state. And so it was just okay. If you've got to be in the public eye, you need to be able to articulate things. You need to be able to speak properly, and we just went from there. I mean, there was no real drive other than if you're going to do this, as everybody around this table, if you're going to do this, you just got to do it properly.
Get in and do it properly, and that's what I want to talk to you about, Damo. We worked together in operations at MVQ6, or I think it was 7.
It was 7, yeah.
Yeah, at the time. You first started as a videotape operator.
I did.
Became a master control operator, which was a big job, handling all the links. We had satellite feeds. We had a microwave bearer link from Cairns all the way to Brisbane, BDQ. Well, actually, we could get through to ATN in Sydney. Tell us your memories of...
My first memory was Ben Bishop with Commodores, motorbikes, doing wheelies out the back in the car park, sending me to the time warp chamber to get the left-handed reel. And then when I was in there, he flicked the light on and off and said, "Beam me up, Scotty." I remember those days really well.
The explosion-proof safe. We actually did have an explosion-proof safe in there because originally, the original MVQ6 licence holders, how they made money obviously was selling commercials, but you needed to guarantee the insurance on the film, the movies that were getting sent around Australia. So if they bought a film, and it might have been The Man with the Golden Gun, for example, to actually hire or lease that film and have it played in your station cost them a lot of money. So you had to guarantee that they had an explosion-proof and oxygen-free zone. Now, without going into health and safety regulations, quite often we would send people into...
The new ones.
You wouldn't believe how quiet it is in there. You get in there and have a listen, and they get into the safe, and next thing you know, clunk, clunk. How quiet is it in there?
I remember, so when I first started, I guess Dad said to me, I was started at university and it wasn't for me. And he said, well, you've got to have a job to go to, and I had a passion for photography. I love photography. Still to this day, I actually do. And there's two things I would have done qualification-wise. Would have been photography and accountancy, would you believe, looking back. The two skills that we use a lot of now that I took I probably didn't realise how much you use it as a life skill. However, I went in as a tape-op, wanted to be a cameraman because you're a cameraman, you were cool. I wasn't cool, so I started to tape op, worked my way up.
But I'll hijack you there because I think, and this is a bit of a story of your life, you're very good at things you put your mind to, and you found it hard to escape that chain. You're one of the youngest master control operators and then one of the youngest presentation coordinators ever put on. So you rose to a very, quite a substantial role in the station very quickly, and then you're almost irreplaceable in that on-air role for quite a while. And I remember... I remember that, and the situation with us camera operators by that stage, I'd spent 4 years in operations myself previously and sort of graduated on to being a camera operator. Once you're a camera operator at 7 Mackay, you didn't let it go, and so it was incredibly hard to crack into, and good old Mactown, we only hide from within.
Yep.
So...
it was difficult. But those roles, I think very fondly of that role at Channel 7, and it gave me a very good grounding of understanding probably what people watched and what people wanted on TV, the amount of times, the amount of ads I watched, and even to this day I talk about top and tails and 15s and 30s, and you use it in everyday life. I don't refer to Bookworm at all. I remember watching Bookworm every morning.
And that's an interesting, very interesting situation, and it relates to the both of you, both Greg and Damo, but as a presentation coordinator in the morning shift, you'd start at 0500 in the morning and you were paid to watch TV, schedule the programs and then schedule the commercials and watch the commercials for client adjacencies, for faults, for spelling errors, and then obviously the complete regulation of transmission, audio levels, video levels, massive job. So you've seen some commercials, thousands of commercials.
Thousands. When it all went black, you panicked. 15 seconds black on air is like a lifetime.
Absolutely. and it's put you in very good stead, as you said, to understand marketing from a ground level all the way through, and you use that every day.
Yeah, correct. I do.
And Corey, you're, I'd say, probably one of the most innovative marketers in the industrial space in Mackay at the moment. We've helped you with a lot of stuff, and you've come to us with some great ideas. Your 2 sensor product, which is an AI, wireless preventative maintenance tool in the mining industry. You've cracked foreign markets with multimedia. How did you realise that you could get such great reach?
Oh, look, the resource of social media is magical. LinkedIn's probably my main platform. Facebook is probably more brand awareness. People knowing who we are. They might not be in the industry, but I look at it from a point of view. They'll be at a barbecue and someone will talk about what they do for a job, and it might relate to my product, and they've seen your video or whatever we've put online. But look, LinkedIn has worked wonders for me. I mentioned before, what did companies do 20 years ago to get that global reach and looking at global markets? Google Translate's one of my big tools, so I'll put some keywords, maintenance, mining, superintendent, we'll use Spanish as an example, and I'll put that translation into LinkedIn, because obviously people put their profile on in their native language.
Simple as that.
Yeah, so, and that sort of highlights to me, if I'm targeting a South American market, what their role is, and try and read between the lines. And then, we've worked together, and we're looking at language voiceovers for one of our videos, which has, I've then sent them our video in Spanish, and within 24 hours I'm having a video call with a mining manager.
Amazing.
In South America, from my little office here in Mackay.
Amazing. Yeah, so you're actually breaking down barriers and getting face-to-faces from multimedia.
Yeah.
And a very clever point you made before, what did people do 20 years ago? Greg, it's an amazing accolade for yourself and achievement. You've actually been Mayor of Mackay a number of times now. You were first Mayor from 91 to 94.
Yeah.
And tell us about the difference now in communications and what you've seen being in the roles over this massive span of time.
Well, as we all know, communications and the ability to communicate has changed dramatically. And Corey, what you're saying, you're able to just communicate to the world now. That was impossible. Even in 91, that was impossible. So I think it's got a lot better today. But when we think back to how simple it was, in 91 we still only had one, commercial station. We had one ABC, we had one television station, and the Daily Mercury. So it was a relatively simple exercise to communicate. There was no social media. So it's, in some sense, it was simple then, but it's easier today to communicate to the world. It's harder to actually fine-tune that message, because there's so many comments on the message that go out today.
Absolutely.
And keeping it to, on message, keeping it to a direct audience is much more difficult today. So in the early days, and even going back when I was on radio, it was you're the only radio station in town, and so that's 80% listenership, and the rest listen to the ABC. So it was an easier paradigm to communicate in, but it's much broader today, and I don't know, it's not easier today, but you're able to get to more people today and deliver a message straight into their smartphone, straight into their lives, whereas before they were listening.
Absolutely, you had a captive audience, and we talk about it a lot on the show, and I get very passionate about it, because what I loved about the yesteryear of mainstream media is it employed a lot of people. And when we had, only the small number of stations, if you held a press conference, you were guaranteed to get journalists.
Correct, yeah. And that small number of people that were employed, when you think about what happened in the early days of television, and Mackay Television was a local company, established by local people. We were one of the first television stations in regional Queensland. That was done here in Mackay. I was actually a director of Mackay Television when Skase took over.
Wow.
And that actually, the amalgamation of, or the aggregation of television stations around Australia was a bad thing for regional communities, because we've seen it progressively, all those jobs disappear. The jobs that Damo and you, Benno, were talking about in the early days, they all disappeared from our community. So now we have to refocus, and what you're doing right now, the ability to refocus locally and deliver a story locally is really, really important. Yeah. And that's exactly what Corey did. We've been out to Corey and talked locally with Corey on our Facebook, just to say that this is local. We've got to keep it local, and I think that's what we've got to really try to do more and more, because in regional Queensland, in regional Australia, we are up against the 83% of people who live in capital cities, and that's where the major communication ability is. So what you're doing here is absolutely fantastic, to be able to tell local stories locally.
Thank you, and I believe it needs to be done. And I just want to go back there one section, because with the amount of staff that Seven had in those days, or MVQ6 when I started.
About to say that. What was it, 50, 70 staff?
50
we're
staff.
We're a community. We're a hub on our own.
Yeah, and I had the pleasure of working with Doug, your father, when I first started. He was graphic designer and art director, and he was actually a brilliant sign writer as well. So a lot of if we had a new safety implementation or something on the machinery, it would be Doug hand drawing it. Perfection.
Well, when Channel 6 first started, and there was nothing like an outdoor cameraman to go out and film a TV commercial. Doug, before he worked at Channel 6, he did all the artwork for the slides to do the local advertising.
Of course.
So there was a camera that perched over the top of a slide deck. Well, I can remember him doing it at home, and he did it every night of the week, just producing these black and white slides for the advertising that was sold locally. So,
unreal.
And all those jobs disappeared. But look, that's progress, and you got to live with progress.
That's right.
You got to say that, okay, all of those jobs have disappeared, but there's new jobs now, and there's new jobs in a new genre of the way we communicate. And young people today, that's just what they expect. They expect instant communication. That wasn't the expectation in those days. So I think it's a good change. I think it's a change that our society is driving, particularly young people, about how they expect instantaneous news, they expect instantaneous advice about their life and their lifestyle. And the more we can deliver that as a community, the more we keep out of the realms of what's being delivered in the southeastern corner of Australia.
Awareness.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
Local and...
Can I just jump on? And we've spoken about that. Honestly, we considered, do I need to have this business in Brisbane? We're putting ourselves out to a global market. Does having a Brisbane address mean that we will be, looked at?
Seen it on a higher pedestal.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the flip side on social media marketing. I do not have to be in Brisbane.
Correct.
I can run a global company from Mackay.
You can live where you want to live,
that's
which
exactly
is here
right.
in Mackay.
Yeah,
that's right.
This is home. So, and we spoke about employment and manufacturing and, logistics. I was talking with a company out the harbour at the moment about logistics and being able to export from our space here rather than being based down in Brisbane.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. So there's technology at its best.
Yeah.
Allowing
so that's
us
the flip
to stay.
side. Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
As long as we've got the pipeline to connect.
That's right.
And the NBN tells us now that that's available in their business plans, the ones that they've just released. And this is not a plug for NBN, but this blew me away. I didn't know that available right now, you can get 1,000 megabytes per second up and down if you're on a business plan with NBN and at the same price as in Brisbane. That's the sort of thing we need in our area to keep regionality and to keep businesses like yours, Corey, in Mackay.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I'm going to go back to something very passionate to us all. Obviously, I married the daughter of a Byrne, and I've eaten many, many free Byrnes pies in my life.
Free Byrnes pies?
I hope you're paying for them now, Ben.
They were.
I hope he pays for them now.
I've got to pay these days. Absolutely wonderful family business, and I can proudly say that my son and daughter, Oscar and Eva, their great-grandfather is Snow Byrne, who started the company. Damo, you in the digital space, first of all, let's talk about pies. How do you have your Byrnes pie, Greg?
It's round with peas.
Round and green, yeah? Damo?
Look, sacrilege, I know, but geez, I love the pasties.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I love the pasties with red. I love the pie as well. I'm a square man. Yeah, square with either no sauce or a bit of red, but
There's got to be some sort of
take it for me.
there's got to be some sort of PhD written on squares and round pies. Like.
I think so.
It's
I
a
think
fight.
so.
It's a war when it gets on social media.
Corey, how about you?
No, I'm round in both sources, mate.
Oh, round.
right.
Yeah.
Green and
Oh, yeah,
red.
green,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there you go.
I'm round, green and black. And but at school, it's funny, I shifted over. At school, I was square and round and I'd eat the lid first.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
everyone's got their own way of eating
Yeah,
Byrnes.
eating the Byrnes
It's been
pie.
a challenge, I tell you.
And, obviously, coming from, you guys do everything from high-end catering, high-level food, very, Mackay's premium food service on one end. You've got cafes, you've got coffee services, you've got beautiful, quick takeaway and eat, run out the door from the cabinet style stuff.
Yep.
Now, the biggest pie factory in Mackay operating and you expanding it to a national level. Tell us about what's been happening.
Well, it's been an interesting 18 months. I think we've had it. Actually, we're coming on 2 years. Actually, in July this year, coming on 2 years since taking over from Rundell. It's been quite an experience, quite a ride. The marketing side of things, and I'll refer to dispensary to start with. The dispensary we brought up from the beginning. We established that was ours. It was quite easy to market. We've put it in where it sits in the market. And it's accepted. People
You
know what
launched
to
Burp.
get.
You launched Burp was so successful, that it paved the way to.
It did pave the way, and then we've obviously rebranded all to the dispensary. And it's been very good for us. A lot easier to manage, but people know who we are and what we do. Taking over a company that's 87 years old, and then trying to give it life for the next 90 years. So we call it around 90-year-old company, pie company. And let me tell you, it's one of the only. It'd be top 5 oldest pie factories in Australia, and it's in Mackay. And our plan is to make sure it's there for 90 years' time, like our kids and their kids. Again, there's still a Byrnes around. And it's been a tough haul. We haven't done this overnight. We've had the ear of some great marketing people. One of them's a regular on your panel. Vicky Smith's been fantastic support for us. And also a gentleman, Graham, from Melbourne, who actually did the rebrand from Coles New World to Coles.
Wow.
Dropped the New World. So we've got some very good ears to lend. And it hasn't been an overnight thing, but the hardest one for me, and you're talking about yesteryear with Channel 7 and all the rest of it, we're trying to market to yesteryear. Some of these Byrnes stalwarts, and they just, I mean this in the nicest way, have got to be careful that they don't hold back that next life for Byrnes. We have no intention. I mean, the recipe is exactly the same. It's written on a piece of cardboard. It's written on a piece of cardboard that's sitting in the flour room. And Rondell will come in and have a pie and say that's as good as whenever they ever were. But marketing to this, to the established, the current generation who are so passionate, and we love the passion of Byrnes, is very difficult. We're finding that challenging. The new people that are coming in and having Byrnes and the new brand that we intend to take, obviously, to start with Sunday, Isaac and Mackay, and spread it far and wide from there, they're very accepting of the new brand, the logo, what we intend to do, how there's a Byrnes Pies, but then there's also this Byrnes Good Food Ready to Eat, which is a grab-and-go option, and the Feel the Cafe, they're very, very well received. It's very well received by them. It's just the very established people are finding it very hard letting go of what it was. It's still the same pie, but it's going to be a different way of looking
And
at
it's
it.
like anything. You've got people that have enjoyed them. Some people in their 90s that are still having a pie.
Yep.
And what I love about Mackay, but I've also learnt over the years, it can be an extremely hard taskmaster as a boss. And
Mackay pride, mate.
Yeah,
Mackay
Mackay pride.
pride. We're very proud people.
There's three less layers of crust in the pastry in the lid, and they're simply not.
I like that. I like that story because when the stalwarts were saying, "Oh, they've changed it," and when all that you changed was fix the oven door, which made the lids a little bit crispier.
Well, you probably got less. Good old bless him, Smiley's 4X sweat and things coming through, and things change. I mean, I remember when I was first coming to the pie shop, we'd go and visit Smiley in the morning at 4 a.m, coming home from town, full of booze, and go and say hello. And in those days, health and safety regulations allowed the master pots of peas, massive big pots that would end up being thinned out as the pie carts came and took their were just on open 5-ring burners.
Oh yes,
and
you had to step over a 6-inch ledge to actually get to them and remove it. Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And so there's things that will change over the years, and you know, the margarines and some common elements have changed anyway. You know, so if you compare the pie from 1965 to now, there's bound to be little changes if you're an absolute pie expert. But I think
it has to evolve to continue. That's where we're at. It does have to evolve, and even the place that we have down there, that's right at the footstep of the PDA. You'll see something great come there in the coming years.
Excellent.
We've got some great plans for there, which is very much paying homage to Byrnes, the brand, and how iconic it is in Mackay. So it'll be great. Just keep an eye on that space.
But Damo, the proof's in the eating, I guess, isn't it?
It is. I've eaten enough. You can tell.
No, I wasn't getting to that. I was going to say that the sales are the proof that what you're doing is right.
Yes. No. Thank you. They are look. It's very well received. It's just we got to get some of the older generation on board to understand that just because it's under new owners, it's not a new pie.
that's right, and I think what we can put it out there that and we challenge Mackay to get down to the pie shop and have a pie and see it for yourself. Make up your own mind because you won't be disappointed.
Yeah.
And I think the most wonderful thing about this entire new birth of the brand and where we're heading is that you're doing it with integrity and very ethically, and you're completely aware of some detractors, you know, and that's a cool thing to be aware of that, and to be prepared to take them on, you know.
Yep. No, we're very aware of it. I mean, I think, and Greg will probably agree with this. Mum used to say, you know, when she was a kid, Byrnes, you know, pies in general. There's some great bakeries in Mackay. We love Byrnes, obviously. We're here to promote Byrnes, but there's some fantastic other great bakeries in Mackay, Elkhorns and Krusties. But that was your fast food back in the day. You know, we're competing now with McDonald's and with Hungry Jack's and Red Rooster, and that's what the younger generation want as their fast food. So it's quite an interesting evolution of trying to reintroduce a pie being cool again. We want a pie to be cool again so the younger generation eat it, but then still making sure the older generation enjoy what they remember for the last 90 years.
Very clever comment. I only had sort of fish and chips, perhaps, in the early stages, and nothing else.
Fish and chips and Byrnes pies, that was it.
Yep.
As you're growing up, if you ever had to have fast food, there was nothing else.
And I'm a pie eater, I must say. I had one yesterday in Prossie. I like the Prossie pies. We're on a job up in Airlie Beach, and to me, it's a bit of a go-to. You know, it was mid-morning, I was hungry. I didn't think of going to Red Rooster, you know, which is what some of this new generation may do. Yep. So we put it back out there, challenge Mackay to try a Byrnes pie, and also check out the new Byrnes Cafe. Tell us about that, Damo.
Right, new Byrnes Cafe is going to be obviously the look and the feel, taking Byrnes forward. It's obviously over opposite the Mater Hospital in Mackay there. It's been a great fit out. It's a very friendly feel, great staff. The classic Byrnes pie range is available there. So there's a classic Byrnes pie range, which is their pies and their sweets that they've always made out of the factory. The pasties are there, sausage rolls, peach balls. I can't believe how many peach balls sell. People love a peach ball and a coffee. But go check that out. It's a great spot. And in time, you will see the Brisbane Street factory resemble something like what that's going to be.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Now, Corey, I want to get back to your LinkedIn presence. I have a very low LinkedIn presence. I'm a Facebooker. I'm very fortunate in the situation where I tend to be reacting to jobs that we've got to complete rather than needing to break into this market. How did you discover LinkedIn?
Oh, look, I've always probably had a presence on there thinking that it would work for me on my service-based company, which never really did, but it was, you know, most professional people in the mining industry sort of have some sort of, whether they're regulars, you know, daily operators of that platform, it was just to understand if I had a new client, who they were, what they were doing, what they'd done in the past. You know, you want to get to know these guys as much as you can. So that's probably in the past what I used LinkedIn for. But going forward, and all of a sudden, you know, I've come from a service-based company to a product-based company, and looking at those sales, it really, you know, started getting some things out there. Then this year's, you know, we worked it really hard last year when we started commercialising the product, and you know, now some of the stuff that we're putting up there, we're getting people approaching us rather than us having to approach them or approach different companies. So, and like I said, it's a brand awareness. It's an awareness of what we've got. That specific person might not want our product right now. next week he's given a new role, or he's, like I said, talking to someone within his business that has got a pain point, and we're a solution. So, you know, we try and do something once a week, you know, twice a month maybe, you know. It's funny when you start thinking about content and trying to think of new content all the time. That's probably, you know, our major issue is just trying to keep that relevant content up with what we've got.
And Greg, you've got a massive Facebook presence, and I think obviously your ability as a presenter, and you said you Toastmasters back in the day, and as a radio presenter, you don't have a lot of trouble presenting a great message simply on the iPhone with Facebook. Do you ever recall, or you look back on those days in radio and think that's obviously what started you as a great orator and public speaker? Do you think that you know, your Facebook messages really get you the reach that you're after?
Well, I think it certainly helps. I mean, Facebook is an age thing. You say you're a Facebooker.
Yes.
Most young people, most really young people, don't use Facebook. So you've got to have another platform to get to them if you want to get to them. So the 18-year-old voters, etc., and the young people in our community. We're going to the mocktail tomorrow night, and there'll be 1,000 17-year-olds there, 17 or 18-year-olds now.
Yep.
They don't use Facebook.
Yep.
So it's about trying to tailor your message, and I think that's the most important thing you can do. You're right, Corey. I mean, and the content is really, really important. But I think that if you're passionate about the message that you're delivering, it doesn't really matter. You're passionate. Yeah. We've talked to you on a couple of occasions now, and what you've done and delivered in the Mackay area by being a local, delivering local to the world. That's a great story, and you can be passionate about that all the time. It doesn't matter how many times you tell that. Yeah. And I think that's what you've got to get across as well. It's not an individual story every time you go online. It's just revamping the story, and for me, it's just revamping the story of this fantastic city and the fantastic region we live in. And there's a number of ways you can say that all the time. So, look, it's whether it's simply Facebook, or I've got a Twitter account, but we never use it, and we don't use LinkedIn either. I've got a LinkedIn account, but I don't use that. The last time I went on there was like 7,500 requests, and so I said, "Oh, that's too hard, so I'll go somewhere else." But yeah, so you just got to tailor it to the audience, and that's what you've said too, Corey. Your audience is specifically tailored, probably to LinkedIn. Yeah. Our audience is tailored across the whole. So we've got to use electronic media. We've got to use whatever social media presence we can deliver, and to take the consequences from all of that. So.
Also, it's a recurring subject on the show, and this reflects upon everybody at the table, especially yourself, Damien and Corey, and especially you, Greg. It's about putting in the work. It takes time, throughout the last sort of pandemic, and making communications and advising people of what's going on. Greg, you're on there constantly. Damo, you're working. You and Ado.
The videos during the COVID, during 2020, videos went viral. So people were very engaged. I know they're sitting at home, they needed something to watch or whatever it may be. But you posted a video and you reached 10,000, 20,000.
Absolutely. 20,000. Big numbers.
Yeah,
big
without
numbers.
a problem at
big
all.
numbers.
So.
And Corey's Russian markets, Spanish markets. Yep. Well, look, we'll go to Clip of the Week. Clip of the Week this week is the 2 Sensor product owned by Corey. We've produced these animations to explain to people there's no other way you can do this except by breaking them down into the 3D renders. Very amazing work by our wizard Robert Cox. We're really proud of this stuff. So it's amazing, Corey, that these days we can actually break away, the probes and the sensors themselves and show them how they work.
Oh, look, I was very impressed with this. It's in my head, I knew what I wanted. Trying to communicate that back to you guys, I didn't hit the mark, didn't think I hit the mark, and then you produce something like that, and it far exceeded my expectation.
Fantastic.
And it's been working globally. It's a clear, quick, concise display of what we've developed, and you guys being able to put that together was a weight off my shoulders.
Oh, great. No, it's always good to have happy customers.
And local. You didn't have to go to Brisbane to get it produced.
I didn't have to go to Brisbane to get it produced.
That's the amazing thing that we've got to continue to do in Mackay is enhance our local content. And, companies like yours, Corey, and Damo, using local productions all the time, that just delivers not just jobs to Mackay, but it delivers the actual credibility for our region to be able to be playing in this marketplace.
That's right. And it also allows us to have solid direction because we can work with each other to make ourselves heard and also not be told by external forces what we need to do and what works when we know what works up here. And our primary drive is to keep things happening up here. Well, guys, stay tuned. We've got a Cutters vodcast next week. That's just been launched. Change the Game. It's a mental health initiative that we're helping not only tell the story of the Cutters and get rugby league across, but keeping the mental health awareness amongst our community and amongst our friends and family and peers. So keep an eye out for the Change the Game vodcast, brought to you by QCCS and Tropical Exposure. Greg, thank you amazingly. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was actually a pleasure.
Benno. Yeah. Absolutely pleasure, and congratulations for what you're doing. I think this is fantastic to showcase our area, but also to showcase what you're able to do.
Thank you. We're very proud, and it's wonderful to have you on the show with all the experience and great input. Damo, thank you very much for coming on the show. Really great to have you.
Thanks, Ben. It just reminded me that clip that I just watched, like what you all said around the table. And this is a bit of credit to you, Ben. I mean, it's unreal to think that was developed in Mackay, the actual 2 sensor. But I've watched that clip from top to tail, and it's a fantastic clip. It's as good as anything you'll get across Australia. And that's obviously helping Corey in what he's trying to do globally. So congratulations on the quality of work that you pump out. People probably don't realise exactly everything that you're capable of here. Even myself, we worked together when there was a lot of ads. Ads is a small part of your business now. You've got so much to offer, and you're here in Mackay. So thanks very much for this. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Very welcome.
Damo, do you realise you're the only square man in this table?
There you go.
I'm the only bald man as well, although Benno's heading that way.
I'm heading that way. I'm combating it with mad hair at the moment, but I'm not afraid to show my individuality, I suppose.
Never have been.
Corey, absolute pleasure to have you on the show and have you as an alliance partner at TropX, and it's wonderful to see you making such big moves in an area that's traditionally governed and held by national companies. So congratulations.
No, thanks, mate. I really appreciate the invitation. It's been fun.
You're very welcome. I'm Benjamin Wayne, Bishop the First. This is TropX Live, Episode 4. We'll play our outro music, which has a bit of a kick to it, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much. Righto. Thanks, boys. Very much. That's what we do. Right on time. That's how good's that?
And that's my EA. Great. That's my EA.